Is it wrong to be okay with your boys fighting out their ongoing conflict supervised?
What a question. Who submits this question? Is it okay to let my boys fight each other supervised?
Yeah.
The question behind the question is it
wrong?
Okay?
Is it wrong
to call your sons together and their friends and organize an underground backyard
that's
fighting?
That's not what it says. It says
it's okay if it's on a trampoline. That's okay. If it's on a trampoline, which is like flying Street Fighter moves, it's okay. Did you ever get any fist fights when you were a kid?
I've never been.
You had a sister. You never got in a fight with your sister?
Not one.
You never punched your sister?
No, I've never thrown a punch in my life.
She ever punch you?
Nope.
Who would win? You or your sister?
My sister for sure.
Maybe that's why. Maybe. I didn't have brothers or sisters my age that I could fight.
Yeah.
So
you were 20 years younger than all of them.
So who's asking this question? Give me a scenario here.
I'm gonna go with it's a dad.
Okay.
And his boys keep fighting, and I guess letting the fight continue till resolution is what he's asking.
Letting it continue.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Well, I think it's okay. Is it wrong to be okay with your boys fighting out their conflict? So my guess would be they're in a fight. It turns physical.
You know what's crazy? I think about my sons. I have a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old. They never get in physical fights. I wonder if it's because of the age gap, though. Like, if they were twins, do you think they'd be swinging at each other?
Honestly, sometimes I think it's personality.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't know, but I think there's personalities that are a little bit like.
Some of the best UFC fighters have brothers their own age and they grew up fighting each other. And a lot of times both of them are in the UFC. There's like 3 different duos that are brothers. Yeah. And in jiu-jitsu where they were like twin brothers, or, you know, I think about the Diaz brothers, Nick and Nate Diaz. I think about the Rotolos. I think about different, you know, they were brothers. They grew up just handling business. Every time they got in a fight, they probably just threw down until the other one won.
So they became professional fighters.
Yes. So Dad, if your son is a diamond in the rough, if you got a star in the making, there you go.
Maybe it's okay.
But is there any kind of biblical worldview behind this? Do we have any stories about Jesus getting in a physical fight, or maybe his disciples physically fighting? Is there any story where Jesus' disciples were fighting and Jesus like stepped back and just let them finish it out? And he's like, whoever wins, wins?
Not that I can recall. I don't see a lot.
Have you ever been in a physical fight, Maria?
Never.
Okay. All right.
Never. I would lose. I would run. I would like try to hug him and pray, and that would be all I could do. Because
I've never met a man who hasn't been in a physical fight that I can think of. So there's a weird thing that happens with guys after they get, do you know about what happens after a guy gets in a fight? Do you know about this phenomenon?
It's weird.
It's a phenomenon.
It is absolutely bizarre, because I have seen guys fight and then they hug.
Yes.
And it is the most baffling thing to me, because if anyone punched me,
let me see this.
I would never want to speak to them again.
Is it wrong to let your boys continue fighting?
Yeah.
So this is like a dad who's watching his sons fight.
Right.
And he probably wants to step in and stop it. Or the mom might want to step in and stop it.
Oh, the mom for sure wants to stop it.
And then the dad's like, honey, just let them handle it. Just let them. They're just boys are being boys. Is that okay? This is a good question. This is a good question. Or does the dad throw them some boxing gloves and help it be less violent?
It's supervised, it says.
The supervising part creeps me out. It's like the dad's just standing back like, go for the kidney.
I think the supervised is so it doesn't get out of hand is my guess.
It's supervised because if he starts pulling hair, he's like, no, boys don't do that. That's why it's supervised.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, if we go back to like the biblical, do we have any biblical evidence for this being okay? I mean, Jesus says things like, turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
You know,
but he's talking about a Roman like oppressor.
Sure.
And you like protesting, or you like basically you can't fight a freaking Roman. So it's not like 2 boys that might be more equal.
Correct.
Right.
But when it came to any, like, I think violence, and this is like the only thing I can kind of equate it to, the only other like violent thing I remember, other than obviously Jesus being tortured as he went to the cross and didn't fight back, is when Peter cuts off the guy's ear, and he's like, Peter, like, why'd you do that? You know, there was a little bit of reprimanding.
Yeah.
Like, why would you be violent in this scenario? So those are the 3 scenarios where
he didn't have to put the ear back on.
Well, he also wasn't like, good job, Peter. You protected me. He was like, dude, what are you doing?
That's true.
You know, so
you remember what he said after that?
Moments.
Do you remember what he said to Peter after that? He goes, I could call down thousands of angels and just smoke all these guys. I'm being gentle.
Right. And gentleness is a fruit of the Spirit.
I was thinking that, yeah.
I know there's this guy thing, and I don't get it, and I never will, and that's okay, where it's like, dude, we got to just fight it out, and like, that seems to work. It's
kind of primal.
I don't see any like Jesus endorsing of it, but I'm not saying it would work. 15, I just don't know if it's biblical.
When I was 15, I got in a gnarly physical fight with my buddy, and it was violent, and afterward, we were best friends. Went to his house right afterward, and we played Sega Dreamcast, and everything was cool after that. Yeah, we never closer. We were never closer. It's intimacy. It's like when two guys get in a physical fight, it's like when a couple has makeup sex. That's what it is. You know, that's like weird. You know when you have makeup sex after you've been fighting and like you feel like really intimate with that person? When guys are fighting and then they just duke it out, afterward they're just like BFFs.
That's a weird, like.
It's true.
Okay.
It's true. It's 100% true. Guys have to learn what to do.
So what you're saying is that they don't actually have to physically fight. They can just fight emotionally.
Negative.
And
guys don't know how to fight emotionally. Guys don't know how to fight emotionally. That I know. Okay, look. Are these 8-year-old boys, let's say, are they going to grow up? Are they going to be angry again?
Are they 8 or are they 15? Like, we don't know the scenario here. They could be teenagers that are fighting. You know, they could be little boys. What are you as a parent telling your kid endorsing it, and at what age?
I grew up fighting. Like, I was in martial arts since I was 10 years old.
Yes.
My weekends, like, were in tournaments fighting as hard as I could against other kids.
Right.
With pads on. And there was a referee, and he would stop us.
Sure.
Right? And I grew up doing jiu-jitsu and, like, learning how to bend somebody's arm to the point of breaking and then stopping it or choking somebody out before they... So I know what it's like to have self-control.
Right.
Part of being a dad is teaching your kids how to have self-control. So if this dad is saying, I'm going to supervise it and I'm going to help them get out their aggression in a sport-like manner, not in a violent manner, but I'm going to help them learn, there is something to be said. If it's supervised, like I'm going to make sure that they don't pick up a brick and hit each other or stab each other, or if it's I'm actually helping train you to deal with this very real thing where men have a masculinity that can get toxic or abusive real fast or violent if they don't know how to have self-control, this could be a great dad right here. Yes or yes? Yes or no? No? My sons never fight each other, so I don't really know. I've never been in this situation with my own sons.
Yeah, if our older son punched our younger son because he was upset with him,
what
would you do?
My son knows exactly what would happen.
What would happen?
What would happen would be discipline would happen. Yes. But if my younger son kept maybe like poking my older son or doing something, and my older son kept having grace and like letting it slide, and then one day my older son just punked him because of what he did, and he ran to me and he's like, Dad, your oldest son just beat me up. I'd say, well, what did you do to kind of provoke him? And then my older son was like, well, he just wouldn't leave me alone. Part of that's like, son, you have to learn not to poke the bear. You can't just do that to people who are bigger than you. And so that's also part of training him too. You can't just, you can't, that scales. I mean, in life, you can't just be a little brat and think you're going to get away with it.
Though, that you're talking about. And
what goes around comes around.
True. But back to like, you're like, I grew up doing martial arts and it was controlled and it was supervised and it's an art form. Two people didn't have issues or conflict and were both engaging in that without some sort of underlying issue. And I think sometimes men may not figure out the underlying issues, resort to physical contact, feel better, but really never take care of the heart issues or the hurt issues. And so is it
listen,
it beneficial? Then I'll leave that up to you.
What are you going to do if you're stressed out? Right? That's a big question.
Sure.
There are guys that get bullied and then that comes out a bad way, right? So how do you channel your stress? How do you get rid of the stress, right? Some people, they just bury it down. And so, some people self-medicate. I mean, and some people go to the gym. I mean, so I think the dad here, it's really about what the dad's plan is. What's the purpose of supervising this? Because you might not be able to get your sons to stop. They might just go fight when they're not around you. Right. You know what I mean? So it might just be like...
Or they might start fighting depending on their age. Like, how formational are their years right now where they think, oh, I can just fight. Dad's good with it everywhere. If they're older, they know. But if they're younger, they might. So just things to think about.
Just put your kids in martial arts. I mean, honestly, the other day, my son was at the mall and some kid threw food at them and they were trying... And it was like my oldest son and like 4 of his buddies and like 2 kids. And they didn't do anything, and Logan like didn't feel like he needed to respond to it because he's got his black belt and he's been in hundreds of fights, and he's he knows
that he's supposed to diffuse everything.
The other day,
not
I watched him
escalate.
tap out a 20-year-old kid 7 times in a row.
Yeah.
Like I watched him tap him out like easy. Like Logan's not insecure about his ability for combat, you know. And then afterward, he was like, he goes, yeah, we just decided to leave it alone. And I'm like, good, because the only reason why 2 kids would pick on 4 kids is because they have a weapon. You know what I mean? Like they were provoking you because they wanted to get into trouble. They had an itch they were trying to scratch. They had something going on. Maybe they had a dad in their house that was beating them up, and then now we're trying to, you know what I mean? And I love that he had some, he had the wherewithal, he had the security, you know what I mean? But he also had the training, you know, to not, so
maybe put your kids in martial arts.
Put your kids in martial arts. That's the answer. Yeah. Is it wrong to be okay with your boys fighting during their ongoing? It's wrong to be okay if you think you're a good martial arts instructor and you have no combat experience. It's wrong to think you're qualified to supervise this. Get somebody around your boys. Get that diamond in the rough. Get that star in the making. Learn how to. So, anyways, but also teach your son that if he picks on somebody, the wrong person, he's gonna catch hands. There's a lot of people out there who are on the edge, who will light somebody up if you provoke them. So you got to teach them to have self-control on both sides.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Good answer to that question.